Hey guys, some gamer dude here. So this week I wanted to do something a little bit different. What was Vanguard's original appeal? The game was insanely popular right through to early G, picking up phenomenal steam. Then it fell from grace, and while the reboot did capture people, anecdotal evidence says they aren't staying. Vanguard isn't necessarily dying, just not big. But what about when it first started? What drew people in? The obvious answer is Yu-Gi-Oh! Was having problems. And while I think that was a considerable part of it, it's only half the story itself. Yu-Gi-Oh! Having problems would get people to notice Vanguard, but it wouldn't get people to stay. Only Vanguard itself and marketing can do that. Kaijudo launched around the same time, and look what happened to that. I believe there are three aspects as to why Vanguard got as big as it did, two of which they would eventually squander, but none of them have anything to do with Yu-Gi-Oh! Well, one does. Kinda. Tangentially. So let's get to that one first. The original run of Cardfight Vanguard's anime is one of the most celebrated card game anime of all time, along with the original Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters, and for a good reason. Vanguard's anime tried going in a very different direction to anyone else, where Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Masters and everyone else starts with a hefty dose of mysticism, introducing many magical elements to a children's game. Vanguard chose the slice of life genre. This was refreshing and made the anime very different, where Yu-Gi is having shadow games with ancient Egyptian magic, and Shobu is literally drawing mana from his mana zone to summon Bolshak Dragon, both in an effort to save the world or defeat some villain. Vanguard had Aichi playing in his local store, making new friends, buying cards, building his deck, forming a team, competing in tournaments. It honestly has more resemblance to a sports shonen, rather than the battle shonen most card game anime emulate. It's got a bit more in common with the original Beyblade of all things. This makes it far more relatable, and that relatability is its hook. It's fresh and new. This freshness and a phenomenal opening that teaches you how to play the game very well, much like the original Duel Masters, helped make Vanguard stand out. Vanguard was not a Yu-Gi-Oh! Clone or something coming out to capitalize on Yu-Gi-Oh!'s success, but its own thing. Unfortunately, Psyqualia, Link Joker aliens, and time warping happened. Vanguard, over time, became a Yu-Gi-Oh! Clone, and worth nothing more than skipping to the new cards when they were shown before Bushiroad had a chance to reveal them as card of the day. The anime became a complete waste of time by the midpoint of the third season. There are some amazing parts to the third season, but the show got rather pointless, generic, and boring. Admittedly, a lot of this started late season 1, but it was a small aspect of the series. By late season 3, it became the show's entire identity, and the filler-esque season 4 didn't help anything, while G missed what made Vanguard the anime great in the first place. I complain a lot that Vanguard has too many clans, and I did feel that way until the reboot started finishing its first cycle, but Vanguard does a fantastic job at utilizing those clans to create character. When they design cards to be wanted, the flavor and the art really sells it to the player. Bushiroad is great at creating emotional bonds between players and their cards. Even their terminology feeds into this with my avatar. Avatars are representations of the person in question. By saying the card is your avatar, it's saying it's you. There is a lot of possession in Vanguard in general. My avatar, my Vanguard, ride chance. It helps build hype around certain characters on the cards and create emotional connection between the players and their cards. This is something Wizards of the Coast could only dream of with their Gatewatch. Even the clans themselves, the themes, the individuality, the mechanics, it builds that emotional connection. Vanguard has such rich theming and character, it actively improves the game. It has something to appeal to everyone, and that's such a fantastic thing that can only be achieved with a system such as the clan system. The third and final aspect as to why I believe Vanguard was originally such a hit is exclusive to the English market. Bushiroad did a fantastic job at creating the illusion Vanguard was balanced. I've talked before about how new games only make an impact when older games have problems, but people are also on the lookout for something without the issues of the game they're leaving. Vanguard, especially the original Vanguard, had a slew of problems, but Bushiroad did a great job of hiding it by rearranging sets to push the problems to the end of the release cycle of the Limit Break era. This caused clans not named Royal Paladin or Kagero to have enough support by their second year being released early as to not be completely dominated by Royal Paladin or Kagero. The illusion was created that these clans were more viable than they really were in the Japanese release order. Dragonic Overlord the End was pushed so far back, Instead of being a problem for a year, it was a problem for a few months and just turned up whenever something had synergy with it. Majesty Lord Blaster was never a problem in English like it was in Japanese. The English game was able to fully embrace my second point. The character of each clan was allowed to shine through via the big two being handicapped. Eventually, people would come to realize they had been bamboozled. Vanguard is a case of a few decks are viable, everything else can only win through luck, and is regulated to casual play. Likewise, over time, especially by Legion and G, it became very apparent that Bushiroad was seemingly incapable of making new, interesting cards and mechanics to capture people and diversify the meta. Instead, they go for raw power creep disguised as a new mechanic. Bushiroad's designers couldn't really function within their own boundaries. They always pushed past. This is an obvious consequence of not having rotation and needing something to sell boosters, but it creates a rat race, and people become very tired over time, both emotionally and financially. Credit where credit is due. B doesn't really seem to be falling into this trap though. It's going for raw synergy instead. When I originally made the script, I didn't talk much about the gameplay itself, because had Vanguard been a festering pile of trash, all the marketing and timing wouldn't have saved it. On the raw appeal of gameplay, just looking at the game as a whole, it does a lot right. But most importantly, Vanguard is made to feel good and it succeeds. Look at each of the components of the game. Writing feels good, like evolution in Pokemon. It's progress you can see and feel. Individual cards bricking in Vanguard is quite rare. Grade 0, 1 and 2 can be used as shields. Grade 3 can be used as perfect guard fodder or beaters. Bricking feels like shit, so the inverse is good. Shields keep players involved during the opponent's turn, which is also a huge positive. The trigger system, while sucky as a mechanic that does turn people off, it does arguably make the game more dynamic and keep people invested. Criticals and heals especially feel good, but they also make your opponent salty. All of Vanguard's components try to make a feels-good game, which is what I think the original developers set out to do. If I recall correctly, Vanguard's origins come from a research project of what players in Japan wanted from a TCG, though I can't find that information again, so don't quote me. As I've said before, Vanguard owes a lot to timing. It was there at the right time, but there is a lot to be said for Bushiroad's management and anime production team at the time. Maybe even more so. Do remember when Vanguard caught on, Kaijudo was coming out, and it failed spectacularly. The show was bad with little to do with the cards. The cards had questionable art design in terms of maturity, art done by Westerners over Japanese artists were considerably more juvenile, and the game was region restricted to America. Kaijudo, being a rebalanced duel masters, probably had more longevity to it before excessive power creep, but Bushiroad just handled the game much better than Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro. All of this culminates into Vanguard just being really appealing at the time, before all the problems surfaced and it became tiresome. I really do think this is why so many people look back and have so many fond memories of the original era in English. Sure, many will say the cards don't do much and it's not as interactive, but Vanguard, the multimedia property, had more going for it as a whole. This has been Some Gamer Dude, and thanks for watching.